Oh, save your applause, trust me. Good evening, my name is Jenelle Riley. I'm the Associate Features Editor at Variety, and I am so thrilled to be here tonight for the SAG Foundation conversation with not just the biggest actor working today, but the best. And that's very rare that those two things collide. Since bursting onto the scene with 1993's This Boy's Life, this is an actor who has continued to make bold choices and deliver outstanding performances in a wide variety of genres. Over the course of his career, he's played everything from an autistic teenager, Romeo himself, Howard Hughes, Gatsby, Hoover, and of course, The Wolf of Wall Street. 20 years ago, he received his first Oscar nomination for What's Eating Gilbert Grape. And just last month, he was nominated for his fourth Oscar as an actor for The Wolf of Wall Street, and his first as a producer for the same film. I am so honored, so pleased, so intimidated to welcome Leonardo DiCaprio.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
Congratulations. I was going to say on a great year, but really a great 20 years. But most recently on your 2 Oscar nominations for Wolf of Wall Street. Can you tell us how you heard the news?
I was falling in and out of sleep in my house, and I think I had the television on at, I don't know, it came on at 4 or 5 in the morning, and then it woke me up around 6. No one called me, actually, which is what happened before, and I saw my name up on the screen. It was pretty amazing, pretty shocking. I didn't expect it, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I know people always say that, but it was a tough year for actors. There were some amazing performances.
Really, a great year for movies, really. I mean,
Yes.
truly, we're talking about, I suppose, a retrospective on my life, but I have seen, different ebbs and flows in the industry, and I got to say, this year's pretty astounding. A lot of, outside financing has come in, and greenlit films that I don't think would normally be financed, and therefore there have been a lot of, outstanding performances as well. I'm really excited to be, just in the conversation this year. It's been great.
I want to go back and start at the beginning because you are, I understand, one of those rare creatures I've heard about, a Los Angeles native.
Yes, yeah.
You were actually born and raised here.
I was born in Cedars-Sinai, which is now the Scientology Center, the old one on Sunset Boulevard. And I grew up on Hollywood and Western, which is kind of a well-documented area because it was Bukowski's safe haven, where he would sort of roam around and write. My father would also carry me around in a crib and run into Bukowski. But it was a kind of my parents both came from New York, and they had this postcard image of utopian Los Angeles and Hollywood, and then we kind of moved into the mecca of prostitution and drug addicts. So that's where I grew up, and then later on moved to Silver Lake and Los Feliz for a long period of time after that. But yeah, I'm from LA, born and raised here, but as I've said many times before, I never felt like I was a part of the Hollywood system. Mm-hmm. I always felt like this weird outsider. And I think that if it weren't for the fact that I had a mother that really took the time to listen to a kid that said, I want to do this for a living. This is what I know I want to do. This is my passion. A 10, 11-year-old kid. If it hadn't been for her taking me to auditions and the sheer proximity of going to a school that accepted me in Beverly Hills, and then being able to drive to the Valley or drive to Hollywood on the way back from school, I probably wouldn't be doing this for a living because if I lived in any other location, I don't think my dream would have been a possibility.
It might have happened. It might have just taken a little bit longer.
Well, I think, to tell you the truth, I think that it's a combination of being in the right place at the right time and being prepared for it and being aggressive about it and sticking with it. I don't know. I mean, I'd done a lot of television and commercials before then, but it was really this one role that launched my career, and that was This Boy's Life. You know, that was the truth of the matter. I was at the right place at the right time and aggressively going out on auditions.
When did you know you wanted to be an actor? I mean, you started at such a young age. Did you think of it as a career, or were you having fun?
Like I said, I always felt like an outsider because I knew of people, you know, that were in the industry. I just didn't know how to get into it. And I remember going to cast different agents when I was 9 or 10 years old. I was rejected twice. I remember there was like this sort of cattle call of kids, and I lined up. It was like a prison photo or something like that. And I'm standing there like this, and I had this crazy breakdancing haircut from when I was breakdancing, and I kind of dressed in hip hop clothing. And I remember they went, yes, yes, went to me, went, nope, yes, yes, nope, yes,
Wow.
yes. And that was it. So I got rejected a couple times, and then I just kept asking and asking and asking. And I remember my dad saying, just stick with it. Someday you'll have your day. And then I came back, I think, 2 years later and finally got an agent, Harry Gold with Bonnie Leike. Bonnie Leike was my first agent.
And I know you started doing commercials and TV appearances like Santa Barbara and Parenthood, the first time around they did
Yeah.
Parenthood. Was it a lot of on-the-job training, or had you taken any classes?
Well, my favorite class was drama school, drama class in high school. I was, you know, it was the only thing I did exceedingly well in. Everything else I was pretty mediocre in, except for biology. I was pretty good in that. But yeah, I mean, my first job was living with a parent who takes drugs, which was an educational kind of after-school thing. And then I got a commercial for Matchbox cars where I played a little gangster and opened a Matchbox set and raced this other kid. And I couldn't believe I got that job. I was excited. From that point on, I was like, if I could do this for a living, if I seriously can get paid for this, and this is a possibility, let's go for it. Let's just keep being aggressive and do it.
I mean, auditioning at any age is a cruel process.
Horrible. It's the worst.
What's it like as a kid? I mean, how do you handle that rejection?
You know, it's interesting because I remember, you know, you're sort of set up and you're put into this system where I think that you're supposed to be a jack of all trades, and you're 11, 12 years old, and you're sort of conditioned to say, well, you know, the casting director's there and say, well, can you juggle? And you're like, absolutely I can juggle, you know, can you ski? Hell yeah, you know, I'm your man, you know, I'll do whatever you want, you know, little tap dancing show. So you're supposed to, like, set yourself up as somebody that can, you know, basically do anything that they want. And I remember sort of having that attitude for a while. And I didn't book a job for like a year at like 12, 13 years old. And I know that's not, it's like a big sob story, but but the truth is, it was that year of like rejection where I finally said to I suppose I took a different attitude towards the audition process. And I started to get jobs after that. And I think it was really because I said to myself, you know, I'm not dependent on this job. You know, this isn't going to define me, you know, and I started to sell myself less, prepare more for the roles, you know, really investigate the characters as much as I could, and not feel like, you know, my self-worth was dependent on whether I booked the job or not. And I think that's finally what clicked with me, and I realized that casting directors weren't always necessarily looking for the the Broadway showman that could do whatever they wanted, but somebody that had, you know, I don't want to say a little edge to them, but, you know, a different attitude about the audition process. Because, you know, you focus more on the work, you focus more on the character rather than selling yourself constantly to these people, which is, you know, and the auditioning process at a young age was kind of cutthroat. I mean, I remember a kid bringing a gun to an audition.
A real one?
Yeah, a real gun. It was a kid that
Did he
brought a
get the
gun.
part?
He might have gotten the role. But, you know, you'd go in there, and I met one of my best friends ever, and Tobey Maguire, at an audition. And, you know, there's this whole dynamic with mothers there and, like, what kid is doing what. And she said to Tobey, and I was just doing karate kicks over at him and, like, having a good time. She's like, watch out for that kid. He's trying to psych you out, Tobey. Don't get into his mind games. And I was like, I was just having fun. I like, I want to hang out with him. But it was this very competitive environment for kids at that time, and still is, I'm sure.
You spoke about the next movie is the one that really broke you out, This Boy's Life.
Yeah.
I believe, were you on Growing Pains at the time and they had to allow you out to do it?
Yeah.
Wow.
What a wonderful group of people to give me that opportunity too, because I think that they kind of, they foresaw that it was probably the last season, and I had three or four episodes, and I didn't know, contractually they didn't need to let me out to go do this movie, but thanks to the support of the cast and everyone who was so lovely, they kind of lobbied for me to be able to go do this movie, and so they wrote me out of the season, getting readopted by my father because I was a homeless kid on Growing Pains, and I got to go do This Boy's Life.
That's why you were readopted by your father.
Yeah.
This is all coming together for me now. This Boy's Life, for those of you who don't know, and shame on you, is an adaptation of Tobias Wolff's memoir about growing up with an abusive stepfather. And I've spoken to the director, Michael Caton Jones, who said he saw over 400 kids for this movie. I mean, do you remember the audition process?
Oh, yeah, very well.
And at one point, I believe it was narrowed down to like maybe 5 kids, and you and Tobey were both in the final 5.
Yeah.
And why is that funny? Do you remember the audition when you first met De Niro?
That was one of those incredible auditions that came around that I suppose every kid had been waiting for a long period of time, because it's just not that often that you get a starring role above Robert De Niro in this incredible, screenplay, and it was, Ellen Barkin and Michael Caton Jones, and it was just, everyone was sort of fiending for this role, and I got down, I suppose, to the final 5, and there was like a last sort of day. Tobey was there, and I do remember thinking to myself, I got to do something. I got to do something to stand out. And in the audition, there was Art Linson, Michael Caton Jones. Art Linson was the producer, and De Niro. And I remember there was a mustard jar scene, and he had to jam a mustard jar in my eye repeatedly. It was an abuse scene. And the script sort of didn't call for it, but I got up and he said, "Now, is it empty? Is it empty?" And I got up and I screamed, "No!" Like completely unnecessary, but I screamed in his face, and I sat there, with my head, looking like a red tomato, and everyone started laughing at me in the entire room. De Niro, everybody was in hysterics, and I sat there frozen thinking, oh my God, I just screwed this entire opportunity up. And I just sat there frozen, and then, Bob, in traditional De Niro fashion, kind of just looked at me and went, it's good, it's good, it's good. And then, we carried on doing the scene, and I think I actually had dinner with De Niro recently, and he told me, no, I was the one who said you should get the job, which was very sweet. So he told me that, which was very cool. And yeah, I mean, as far as memories are concerned, that I'm the most nostalgic about that movie, and I remember every single day on set because everything was so new to me, having come from straight from a sitcom where everything was very relaxed on set. Everyone was constantly joking around, to having, De Niro walk on set, and the difference, the sort of dynamic and presence that he had with the crew was just, I was like, what is going on here? I don't quite fathom what everyone's so serious about. And then I saw him sort of go through his process, the improv, just the technical work was just something that I witnessed every single day, and really, really blew me away. Because I didn't know how to conduct myself on a set. I was just sort of a wild animal, and it was really Michael Caton Jones that, gave me some of these incredible fundamentals about making a movie. Every time I would sort of, get tired of a scene or not want to persist, you go, pain is temporary, film is forever. You go back in there and you give it everything you possibly can, and then, I remember a scene, and Tobey actually, we made a vow, Tobey and I, we said, whoever gets gets a role, whoever gets the lead, we gotta fight for one of us to get a role in this movie. So that was my one request, that Tobey got a role in the movie, and he has a small role in the film too. And I remember Michael Caton-Jones sitting there, and we're all sort of goofing off and being kids, being 15-year-old kids, and he went up to Tobey, who was goofing off with me right before a dramatic scene, and he goes, leave him alone. He's like, why? He's like, an actor prepares. And he sent me off to the corner, goes, you go focus on what the scene means, and I did. You know what I mean? It was those types of basics that were, lifelong lessons that I learned from that movie. I mean, I really learned everything about making movies from that one experience.
Did you ever get over the intimidation of, being in a film with Robert De Niro? Did it fade as you worked together?
Oh, no, I've never. No, it's still not to this day. I mean, he is my favorite actor of all time. He really is. He's, that relationship with him and Scorsese just influenced every one of my friends in the industry that I've met through the years. That is the sort of golden relationship of cinema to me. I mean, it just gets no better than that. That run of films that they did together is just, can't even talk about it. It's that mind-blowing.
I believe you've also said, like I said, you weren't training as a kid, but you were reading a lot of books on Meisner technique.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I never went to a formal acting. It was only until really The Aviator that I started working with Larry Moss, who, it was the first film that I had produced, that I had thought of. It was sort of my concept, and I felt like I needed to brush up on my technique. So that's when I really started doing formal training, and it was an amazing experience with him. I mean, it was more than learning how to be a better actor. He was a life coach. It was like, he's like, the first day, he was like, all right, you wanna go over this stuff? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And he's like, okay, you're Howard Hughes, you're in your plane, this is your cocoon, this is your sanctuary. Show me how you fly a plane. I'm like, well, I haven't really. He's like, come on, basically, sit in that chair and do it for me right now. I'm like, well, I haven't quite prepared. He's like, don't you pull that shit with me. He's like, you get in that goddamn cockpit right now, and you show me who the hell Howard Hughes is. You do it in front of me right now. I'm like, okay, shit. I mean, and from there, we started working on breaking down this script in a way that I'd never had before.
I have to say I'm impressed, because most people, don't get an Oscar nomination and have like many hit films behind them and then choose to go see an acting coach.
I think everyone can always, brush up on their technique. It is, what we do is it takes a lot of research. If you really want to inhabit a role, it takes a lot of work and training, and I think it's incredibly important to constantly, no matter how successful you are, it's incredibly important.
So after This Boy's Life, you went on to play Arnie Grape in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and this was a turning point. I know. This was a turning point in a lot of ways, because I understand you actually turned down another movie just for the opportunity. I don't even think you had an audition lined up for Gilbert Grape.
I did have an audition lined up for it, yeah. No, it was one of those situations where, I did this movie, This Boy's Life, and it hadn't come out yet, but there was this one role that I wanted to play desperately, but I started to get offers for other movies, and there was a big Disney movie that they wanted me to do, and I don't know where I got those little balls at 16 years old to say, no, I'm gonna wait it out because I want to audition for this other film. But if there's one thing that I'm really proud of in my entire career, it's that moment at 16 to say that, and do that and have that sort of conviction of what I wanted to do. That's the one thing I'm really proud of.
Because the other movie was an offer, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was for a lot of money at that time, which sounded great at the time, but I said no. Yeah.
Did you have a good support team at this point? An agent, a manager?
My father would always sort of steer me towards interesting projects. For example, doing playing Arthur Rimbaud was never something that was on my radar. And my dad's sort of, he's an incredibly well-read person, and he's like, look, you know, I know you're getting offered these other things, but take a look at this guy, Arthur Rimbaud. He was kind of the James Dean of his era. He was a very radical poet, changed poetry at that time. And, you know, I'm not telling you what to do, but just, take a little special attention to that one. And through the course of my career, he's always, you know, gently said to me, hey, you know, you might want to take a look at this. I haven't always listened to him, of course, but, you know, it's been great to have somebody like that.
What was it about the part of Arnie that spoke to you so strongly?
I was a big fan of Lasse Hallström, and My Life as a Dog I remember seeing with my mother in the theaters and being blown away by that film. And I was also a huge fan of Juliette Lewis. I saw Cape Fear, and I was just like, this is one of the greatest actresses I've seen come out in this industry in a long time. And of course, getting to work with Johnny Depp was a big thing. But it was the role, you know, it was the role. I remember talking to my agents and them saying to me, look, this is a real, if you really, you know, want to do a special kind of character and really go for something a little different, you know, this could be it for you. So, you know, I really, and Lasse gave us these tapes of a kid that he wanted to model Arnie off of. And, you know, I kind of just obsessively watched that for a week and imitated what was on the tapes. Mm-hmm. And then after I got the role, it was a whole other process of, investigating that role.
Now, I don't think you found out until after you'd gotten the part, or maybe even after the movie was done, but Lasse originally didn't want to cast you because he thought you were too good looking.
Oh, yeah, that's what I heard afterwards, yeah. Yeah, I remember getting the role. I actually remember the moment when I got Gilbert Grape. I was so excited because I'd said no to a few things, and I was with, I think, Tobey and my friend Kevin were doing Hot Rod Brown Class Clown or something like that, a television show, and I was in his trailer, and we were in an Airstream, and I remember jumping up and down and hitting my head, and we were all sort of celebrating and rolling around and wrestling. It was a great moment. It was like winning the lottery, really.
Yeah. Tobey didn't go out for Gilbert Grape, too, did he?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But like I said, I have a terrible memory. Terrible.
And he's
memory
done just fine, so we don't have to feel bad for him. And once you actually landed the role, I understand you continued to sort of study this character by spending time at a home?
Yeah.
For people who had a condition like Arnie's.
I sort of, this was really the first distinct character that I was playing, so I tried to emulate, I suppose, what I saw Bob do on set. And, I said, Lasse, he was kind of involved with structuring the script, and I think he was kind of just expecting me to do what I did in the audition. And I said, well, I'm going to go to, a home in Austin, Texas, and spend some time with some kids who have mental disabilities. And I spent about a week there. And I remember coming to him with this checklist. and it was like 100 different little attributes that I learned from hanging out with these kids. And I said, will you just show me what you want me to do? He's like, no, why don't you just act those out? So I did all of them. I said, I think I'm thinking of 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, 24. And he's like, okay, you do that. And I remember the first day being incredibly nervous, and we did a lot of takes. With Lasse, and I felt like it was a catastrophe. But the more I was on set, the more I got used to the atmosphere and sort of got my feet into the role, it just sort of took on a life of its own. And it was a lot, that role was so fun because I wasn't dependent on the screenplay whatsoever. I mean, I had my own set of rules. I could do whatever the hell I wanted. I mean, sometimes it was like a dramatic scene for Johnny, and I would just be throwing spaghetti in the air, and Lasse would say, "Are you sure you want to do that?" I'm like, "I don't know. This is what I would be doing." He's like, "All right, you go for it." And it was incredibly freeing because I didn't have to. We paid attention to the script, but it was so loose. Mm-hmm. Everything was so incredibly loose and so improvisational, and I really just lived in my own world. It was great. It was awesome. It was a great experience.
And for that role, you were named Best Supporting Actor by the National Board of Review, and you received your first Golden Globe nomination and your first Oscar nomination at the age of 19.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like going through, that whirlwind? And you probably couldn't have expected that from this small little movie directed by some foreigner.
No, I didn't even know what the hell was going on, to tell you the truth. I just remember when they told me that I was nominated, I was like incredibly excited, shocked, and then my first reaction was I just don't want to go up on stage and accept anything, because they told me 1 billion people watched you give award speeches, and I said I don't want to, I told my mom, I don't want to go up there, Mom. She's like, well, you have to go. You have to go. You have to go do this. But I was incredibly shocked. I remember going to a screening and somebody complimented me afterwards, and I was just completely unaware of anything that was going on. It's nowadays you're infused with all this stuff about awards and this and that and box office, and I mean at that time it was just I had no idea. I mean I didn't even read a single review. It was just like a random person coming up to me after seeing a screening saying, "Hey, good job," and I'd be like, "Cool." It was a much different time.
So are you aware that Janet Maslin of the New York Times called your turn show-stopping?
No, I didn't. Like I said, I didn't read anything. It was nice to get a reaction from my friends and people that I knew.
Did that film or the Oscar nomination, change your career? Did you find more offers were coming to you?
Certainly, yeah. After that, for sure, yeah. Things accelerated after that for me, for sure.
But again, it seems like you made very interesting choices. You did 2 small films. You mentioned playing Arthur Rimbaud in Total Eclipse, and you also played Jim Carroll in The Basketball Diaries.
Yeah, that's right. Totally forgot about The Basketball Diaries.
Those are really interesting choices, especially, for someone who's 20 at the time, I think.
I think I was even younger. I think I was 18 when I did Basketball Diaries. I think so. Yeah, because I was in New York for the first time with my own apartment. Yeah. Yeah, that was a role that I really fought for and really wanted, and it was incredibly low budget. God, I think we did it for $2 million or something like that in New York, and that was another role that I was really, really passionate about, and it was incredibly exciting time.
What 18-year-old is passionate about Jim Carroll?
Well, I read his poetry and his book, and I remember talking to my parents about New York at that time, and I just thought it was so beautifully written. Yeah.
This also began a trend of yours of playing real-life people, which you'd continue with movies like J. Edgar and Wolf of Wall Street, obviously. What is it that attracts you to real people?
I suppose when you're reading a screenplay and you're moved by something that happens in it, to know that it happened in reality, you just get a different sort of emotional attachment to it. And oftentimes, people's lives are just so much more surreal and interesting and obscure than something that a writer can create from their own imagination. So I don't know. I've had this weird. I've never really questioned why I'm attracted to material. I just have sort of gone for it, and I've looked into history a lot of times to find interesting characters, because I just feel like they're just so much more original. They are,
strangely,
and bizarre. People's motivations and choices, they puzzle me all the time. You know what I mean? You're doing a scene and you think, okay, he breaks up with his girlfriend, he should have this sort of traditional response. But then if you're like looking at it like a historian and you look back at that time period of their life, they took a completely different direction. You wonder why. And just people are so interesting. Their choices are so interesting.
Do you approach playing a real person differently at all? Do you feel a certain responsibility knowing that this person has
for sure.
family and ancestors?
I just like the investigative process of it. I really do. I think that it's almost like doing a college thesis on somebody. And, like I said, with the Aviator, I read a book on Howard Hughes in my early 20s, and I tried to develop that for many, 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 many years. Michael Mann wrote a screenplay, and what I was going to do with Michael Mann, and he had just done Ollie and said he was biopicked out, and I respected that, and then I brought it to Marty, and thankfully he did it, and he read, it was called The Aviator, and you know, I didn't know if he would respond to it, because we'd just done Gangs in New York, and he basically said to me, look, this screenplay is interesting because it's about, you know, the minutia of germs within, you know, this incredible tycoon, this guy that is victim to his own sort of psychosis. And he goes, I picked it up and I read Aviator on the front title, and I said, well, I don't know anything about aviation. But then I said to myself, well, I didn't know anything about boxing, and I did Raging Bull, so I'm gonna consider this. And thankfully he did it. But yeah, I love I mean, for The Aviator, for example, I did this entire road trip, sort of meeting everybody that I knew that ever knew Howard Hughes or had Howard Hughes stories, and I was like an investigative journalist. It was so much fun to dig into history like that and try to encapsulate, you know, where he was at certain time periods in his life and the choices that he made.
Well, he may not be real, but I don't think any historical figure comes bigger than Romeo in Romeo and Juliet, which was your next film. What was the appeal of doing Shakespeare, but it's Shakespeare via Baz Luhrmann?
Oh, you know, it was really Baz. Baz is such an interesting, dynamic force, and so enthusiastic about creating art and experimenting that you sit alone with him for, you know, an hour and you just want to do anything that he says. It's amazing. I mean, he's incredible. He's so inspiring. He really is, and he's a director that takes a lot of chances, and a lot of the stuff is incredibly broad. But when it comes down to the text, to the actual words, he is incredibly precise and persistent about you know, doing the literature justice. And with Romeo and Juliet, you know, he was incredibly precise about it too, but at the same time, it was this incredibly new journey of trying to modernize the Bard, which was, you know, very scary at the time for a lot of us.
Of course, we have to talk about the big one, Titanic.
Right.
When you signed on to make it, you had no way of knowing that it would become this phenomenon.
Yeah.
What was it that initially appealed to you about that script?
Well, it didn't initially appeal to me because I think I took a long time to just get my mind around doing a film of that nature. I, you know, done all these independent movies, but it was really, you know, my conversations with Kate Winslet, who's been a lifelong friend since doing that movie, and her passion about the project, and then meeting Jim after that, and it was an experiment to try to do something that was this incredible epic, and it was a mind-blowing, insane, thrilling experience for the both of us. It really was. It was unlike any other experience I've ever had, really.
Is it true the first scene you shot was the one where you're sketching her nude?
I believe so. Maybe.
So they threw you right into it.
I think so. I don't remember specifically.
I mean, obviously, the reason for the film's huge success is the chemistry with you and Kate. Was that instantaneous? Was it something you guys worked on before shooting?
I think we just really got along right off the bat. I mean, she is such a committed actress, and I saw that at, God, what were we, 22, something like that. She was so committed and focused and amazing, and worked so hard on that movie. And of course, you know, the movie went over by many, many months, and it was an incredibly hard experience for both of us to do. But, you know, it was rewarding at the same time. It was rewarding for both of us because, you know, we got to act alongside each other in a film that I think, you know, touched a lot of people around the world, and I'm proud of it. I'm very proud of the movie.
Was there a certain moment when you knew it had become, you know, part of the cultural zeitgeist?
Again, you know, like I said, I didn't at all grasp how far-reaching this movie was. Mm-hmm. People would say to me, you know, this movie's doing really well. And I'm like, great, that's wonderful. Like no, really, really, really well. I'm like, so it's doing really, really, really well. Great. So what does that mean? Well, you're going to hit $1 billion. I'm like, so that's a good average for, you know, how a movie does? Like, no, it's en route to being, you know, incredibly successful, maybe the most successful. I'm like, oh, okay, so then that's really good, right? these numbers that people were throwing at me, I didn't understand box office statistics or how many people were going to repeatedly see this movie, teenage girls, and it just became this thing. You know, I don't really know how to describe it, but you know, it was really Jim's writing and his story and that romance and that those sort of I know those lovers that you know, basically at the end of the film don't get to be together, and that a lot of tears, I suppose, you know, for people at the end of that movie. But there was no way to foresee what kind of impact that would have had. And it was, like I said, it was an experiment for both of us. Both Kate and I had no idea. While we were making the movie, I mean, it was on the cover of Hollywood Reporter, disaster, this film is a catastrophe. $300 million being spent on this, you know, gigantic film that's destined to fail. It's like, Jesus Christ. So when it came out, it was, like I said, we didn't even know, we were just, our heads were spinning.
Yeah.
Our heads were spinning.
It became such a phenomenon. I mean, to be at the center of that madness, how did you keep yourself grounded during that time? Or did you? Maybe you didn't.
I basically kind of ran away from it all,
Yeah.
I think. You know, I ran away from, not from, it wasn't necessarily a success of it all, but it was just, you know, I think it's probably a lot worse nowadays for people who are sort of pushed into the limelight like that because of the media and the intense sort of scrutiny of the internet and all that. But even at that time, for me, it was you know, I was nowhere to sort of run to, and I wanted to say, okay, I want to let everything kind of calm down, let the dust settle from this movie, regroup, and go find a project that I'm really, really passionate about and I really want to do. And so you know, I didn't work for a while.
Mm-hmm. You took like a year and a half off at least?
Yeah, something like that. You know, it was, but at that time, it was when I really said to myself, okay, you know, here I am with this incredible opportunity. What am I going to do with it? You know, what am I going to do? You know, people dream about being in a position where they can finance a film based on their name. And I said to myself, all right, let's go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and now you can make movies that you want. And not that Titanic wasn't something that I wanted to do, but you can really be in control of your career like never before. You know, you can develop things and seek things out that are interesting to you and pursue them and get them financed.
And your next movie was The Beach.
Yeah, The Beach, yeah.
Yes, with Danny Boyle.
I remember seeing Train Spotting in Cannes, and Danny Boyle's work was just, it was so incredibly punk rock, that movie. And I just, I immediately, you know, they offered me the film, and I wanted to work with them really, really bad, really, really bad.
It's interesting because at this, you know, I talked about being intimidated by De Niro and who he was and his stardom when you showed up on set. Were you aware of how, I mean, were people treating you differently when you arrived on set now? Could you feel it?
Oh yeah, it was different.
Yeah.
It was different. You know, I always just came into it like an actor, but then it was the whole pressure of this being a film that is, you know, has no spectacle to it. It's based on your name and your you know, who you are, and you're sort of the headliner here. So, you know, it was sort of, I suppose people were looking at me to do certain things that I was unaware of, you know, as the lead in the movie for the first time. But it was lead in the movie of a film that was like larger budget and, you know, was financed because of me. So, but I just, you know, I tried my best to just, you know, stick to doing the material as best I could, really.
After The Beach, you began a run of truly exceptional films. You worked with Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks in Catch Me If You Can. It's actually strange to me you hadn't worked with Spielberg yet at this point.
Yeah, I'd come straight from Gangs of New York and went straight to Catch Me If You Can right after that. Yeah.
Wow, not too shabby. So Gangs of New York actually came first.
Yes.
Okay, and this was the first of 5 collaborations with Martin Scorsese, which has proven to be one of cinema's greatest partnerships. You mentioned that, you know, you De Niro first told him about you, and I believe you met him like right after Gilbert Grape, briefly?
Yes, Marty, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran into him at some sort of after party for a film, and I walked up to him, and I was kind of in shock to meet him, and I said, hi, and he goes, hi, and he was kind of on his way out. He's always usually on his way out somewhere. He's like, hi, kid, hi, how you doing? Bob told me about you. Really great job in Gilbert Grape, and I saw your other films, too. Okay, great to meet you. I'm like, so I said, wow, he's seen my work. He's actually seen movies that I've done. This is incredible. Wow. So that kind of got the clock ticking, not clock ticking, but my mind thinking, maybe I could work with this guy one day. So I asked my agent if there was anything that he had in mind for someone in my age range, and they sort of researched that in his development, he'd been wanting to do this film about, the 5 points, turn of the century in New York, and it had been a passion project of him, this book, Gangs of New York, that he'd been trying to do for 20 years. And I kept sort of penetrating his representation with mine and saying, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And I was eating my pad thai doing the beach. I remember the moment when I got the call that I had my noodles in my hand. He goes, he wants to do the movie with you. And I dropped my pad thai and couldn't eat and jumped out.
It's interesting because I actually spoke to him, and he said that, he met you after Gilbert Grape, and you guys had talked maybe, and then Titanic came out, and he was like, oh, this kid's never going to work with me. He's gone off to become a movie star. And he was so impressed that you came through for Gangs of New York, and he had this quote that I love that he said, that was when he learned he's an actor first and foremost, and he checks any stardom at the door. And
well, that being said, I mean, who wouldn't want to work with Martin Scorsese?
Yeah.
I know. I mean, that's.
Yeah, he's selling himself a little
I mean,
short.
anyone would jump at the opportunity to work with him, of course.
And obviously, your co-star in this movie, Daniel Day-Lewis, he was in retirement at the time.
Yes, he was.
How did you guys get him out?
We were talking about who was going to play this incredible role of Bill the Butcher, and a few names came up, and somebody said, it may have been Marty, who said, what about Daniel? And people immediately said, well, he's retired. He's not, he's a cobbler. He's making shoes in Italy. So.
Still sounds absurd.
So it was actually my job to go speak with him, because I think that it was this kind of thing between both of them had worked together, previously on Age of Innocence, of course, and but he'd stopped acting. So Scorsese actually said to me, "Look, I'm not sure how Daniel feels, if he's ready to work or not. You're another actor. You should, have a conversation with him and suss it out." And I'll never forget, meeting him in New York. I went to his brownstone, sort of knocked on the door, and he opened the door and he goes, "Hi, how are you?" And I go, "Hi, nice to meet you, Leonardo. Daniel." He goes, "Shall we walk?" I go, "Okay." And we started walking through Central Park, and he didn't say anything to me for the first couple minutes. So I said, all right, I'm not going to say anything to him either. So we kind of walked in silence, which for about 10 minutes through Central Park, never met one another, and just walked. It was incredibly surreal, and I just said to myself, I'm going to wait till he's ready to speak. Finally, in the middle of Central Park, he finds a bench and goes, "That looks good. Would you like to sit?" Sure. We sat down, and we started talking about acting. And, so I immediately asked him, I said, look, there's the role of a gangster in the turn of the century in New York who's a butcher, who carries butcher knives with a top hat and a mustache in a Martin Scorsese movie. Who in their right mind wouldn't want to do this? And he said, Leo, you have to understand, it's not about not wanting to work with him on a film like this. Marty is the reason that I became an actor. I saw Mean Streets, and that film was so raw and incredible and made me, inspired to act. And I don't want to be of disservice to him. Mm. And I said, well, I'm sure that we can figure something out. And so it was like this slow sort of conversation that we had. And we went out to dinner a few times. It was actually Tobey who said to him, I think it's when somebody has a talent like that, like yours,
Yeah.
it's almost their responsibility to do it, to get back in the saddle. And I think he slightly disagreed at first, but eventually, thank God, he said yes, and I got to work with somebody who was another huge influence on myself as an actor. I mean, there's commitment, and then there's Daniel Day-Lewis.
Please tell me Tobey told him that with great power comes great responsibility. Please.
He didn't quite say that, but I remember the first day. We developed this for a while. We were there for months. He built all these sets in Cinecittà Studios. I mean, we had the 5 points. It was the most unbelievable set ever because you walked into a world and you submerged yourself back in time. They built a wharf. They built a Chinese pagoda, entire neighborhood, where all the 5 points got together. And I remember, walking around this crazy set, and then we're working on the script constantly every day. And then it was like 2 days before we started shooting, and we've been saying, "Hi, Daniel. Hi, Marty. Good morning," stuff like that. And Daniel I kind of walked by, and Daniel went. Daniel looked. I said, "Morning, Danny." And he went. And I said, "Oh shit, game on, game on." Okay. I didn't say. I don't think I said another word to him through the 9 months that we were there. It was just, he was Bill the Butcher, and that was
amazing.
He was Bill the Butcher, and it was only until the last day of reshoots that we kind of looked at each other and laughed, and like cracked a smile.
I mean, it obviously works for him, whatever he's doing. Do you think you could do that though?
Yeah. I mean, look, I've done that to a certain degree myself, but I think to each his own,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that his level of commitment is just so absolute, and he goes home. He goes home in character, but to a certain degree, I'm sure he has to kiss his child and his wife and go to bed. But it's that kind of level of commitment was inspiring again for me. I mean, he was just phenomenal and in character all the time. And again, that I think as an actor, being able to witness that and seeing the sort of heights of commitment like that was another stage of learning for me.
So did you know when you were working on Gangs of New York that this collaboration with Martin Scorsese was going to continue on and change your life?
Absolutely not, no.
So you went to him with The Aviator.
Yeah, I mean, to tell you the truth, it's just been very simply this, that we work well together. I think we're of different generations, but we share similar tastes in material and the type of movies that we want to do. And I think accidentally we've just, after The Aviator, things have sort of come to us simultaneously, or we've developed things together. And, I suppose I've been convincing a few times with him and persuading him to do certain material because I just felt like there was nobody else for the job. And certainly with The Aviator and Wolf, those were two movies that I was sort of hammering him on, and Gangs of New York, as a matter of fact, yeah. But Shutter Island just sort of came about, and he offered it to me, as well as The Departed.
So with The Departed, he came to you.
Yes.
What is it like? I mean, he was the this is dumbing it down a bit, but he was the Susan Lucci of the Oscars. This was the guy that everybody loved.
Marty?
Could never win, was regarded as the best filmmaker ever. So to be such an integral part of the movie where he finally wins the Oscar, that must have felt pretty great.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you talk about Marty's work, he's really been, to me, the heartbeat of American cinema ever since Mean Streets. I mean, his contribution to film is just incredible and breathtaking. And as far as him not winning, I think, if anything, it's strange. I think he always probably felt, even though he's highly regarded as one of the greatest directors of all time, I think he always felt a part of the New York establishment of filmmakers, guys that were sort of doing films that are a little more raw, a little more dangerous, a little more out there, and never quite being accepted by, the West Coast, so to speak. And I think, it was of course, overdue that he won for The Departed. Of course, overdue. I mean, but didn't Kubrick and Hitchcock never win Oscars? That's what I heard as well, which is incredible. incredible. How the hell did they never win?
Before we get to your most recent collaboration, I just want to touch on a couple other recent films, starting with one of my favorites, Christopher Nolan's Inception. So was it all a dream or what?
I had my own interpretation, and that was that I got back to reality. I had to make my own choice on that one, yeah.
Really?
But of course, it was set up from the beginning that Christopher, I don't want to give anything away, but it's supposed to be ambiguous, you know, you're supposed to extract what you want from that ending.
But as an optimist, do you think he gets home?
That was my choice.
Yeah.
That was my choice.
I know he's notoriously discreet with his scripts. So had you been looking to do something together? I mean, did he let you read the script before you signed on?
Yes, I read the script. It was a very sort of top secret script, absolutely. And, you know, I think he'd constructed this screenplay many, many years beforehand, even before Batman, before Dark Knight, and sort of reworked it again. And then I think it was, for both of us, it was a matter of finding the character within that, and we got to sit down for 2 months and sort of bring out all this sort of subplot of the, you know, my character having this past life not past life, but this life in his own subconscious with his wife, where he almost had an entire relationship in another, you know, another life that went on, but all in his mind. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing about Inception is it's so beautiful visually and overpowering. I think people forget how emotional it is. I mean, it's about a man trying to get back to his children.
Yeah, that was what was kind of paramount for both of us in the pre-production process, was bringing that storyline across as much as we could within the sort of incredible matrix of phenomenal stuff that Chris did in that movie. It's kind of mind-blowing what he pulled off in that movie.
Yeah. The other movie I want to talk about really quick is Django Unchained, where you played, Calvin J. Candy, who is obviously a completely vile character, but it's a very fun performance. And I think this might be the first time we really see you play an out-and-out villain.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, was that part of the appeal?
I wanted to work with Tarantino for sure, and that was a very interesting set to walk on. I mean, there hadn't been, you know, many films up until that time about slavery. Certainly a film of that sort of scale, and playing such an incredibly detestable human being like that, and such a well-written character. It was really the first day that, you know, I sort of talked with the other actors and Jamie and Samuel, and it was like, you know, how far do we go with this? And they both said, you better go the distance. I'm like, I'm prepared to. I'm prepared to go to the distance. But like, look, you know, this is obviously incredibly touchy subject matter, but, you know, if you don't play this guy as the worst possible son of a bitch that could ever be, you know, people are going to think we're sugarcoating this issue, and it's an important issue to talk about as far as American history is concerned. I said, I totally agree, and let's go. But the first day was quite crazy. I mean, I had 2 fighters, and I was calling them the N-word every single day, and it was tough. It was really tough. It was actually took a long time to adjust to. You never quite felt comfortable, but that's part of what we do, you know.
Was at the end of the day, did you do a lot of apologizing? I'm sorry, I'm so sorry.
Well, everyone was supportive. The entire cast was, you know, supportive. You know, we know we're making a movie, and like I said, the entire cast was kind of, especially Jamie, was incredibly encouraging to me. You know, kept, you know, giving me the thumbs up when I was being incredibly horrible.
I think you actually shot The Great Gatsby before Django.
Yeah.
Reuniting with Baz Luhrmann.
Yeah.
Am I pronouncing that right? Is it Baz?
Baz.
Baz. God, I've been...
Baz, tomato.
Mr. Luhrmann. And I've heard that you were very meticulous in your research into this character. Are you willing to expound on that?
Well, you're taking on Fitzgerald, or taking on one of the greatest novels ever written, certainly what's maybe considered the greatest American novel, possibly. I mean, I think so. I remember reading it in high school, and you know, I also saw the Redford version in high school, and I identified with it, but in a completely different way. from when I picked it up again, as an adult. And it was really one of the most existential novels I've ever read. And it's one of those novels that you can keep investigating and keep trying to find answers to. And Fitzgerald's words, it really is a lot to do with the editing of that book that's so fascinating, because we took a lot from Trimalchio, which was the unedited version of The Great Gatsby, and that's what I kept referring to back and forth, because so much of Gatsby is mysterious and unanswered, and that's the beauty of that character, and why he's such a sort of almost mythological, character in our culture. And so for me, it was about going back to Trimalchio to find Fitzgerald's original intent and motivation with Gatsby, what he meant by certain lines, what he was saying to Daisy when he would sometimes sound obscure in The Great Gatsby. Trimalchio was a lot more overt and a lot more, spelled out, to the point where it wasn't, it was a subpar novel. But like I said, it was the editing and what was taken out of Trimalchio where sort of Gatsby's interrupted and he just sort of trails off or wanders off or says something that's elusive, and like, what the hell did he mean by that? But for me as an actor, it was the compare and contrast of those two novels constantly. And, thank God Baz handed me that, because it gave me so many answers. Thank God we had that as actors, because it gave me so many answers. And we didn't change a lot of the dialogue from Gatsby, maybe a few lines here and there, but I always understood what I felt. I understood closer to what Fitzgerald's original intent was from that book.
And Mr. Lerman has said that you actually hesitated at taking on the role, partially maybe the intimidation of playing Gatsby, but also he said you don't really like to play characters where the looks are such a strong part of it.
That's not true.
He is a liar.
No, it was completely the,
Yeah.
taking on Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I mean, it's an incredible undertaking, but it was like a theater group. We were really, and what I was blown away by doing that movie, and this is the truth, was the level of commitment of the actors in Australia. I mean, we should be ashamed.
Yeah, really.
These people out there, they're isolated, on this continent, and they know about Hollywood, but they all work 4 times as hard.
Yeah.
It's amazing how hungry they are to be a part of the industry, and they're just constantly focused on, everyone around us. Every single day was just into the novel, reading everything, working their ass off. I was so impressed by the Australian actors there. I can't say enough about them, really. Not that we should all be ashamed, but
Yeah.
no, but it was inspiring to see, a place that was sort of isolated on the other part of the world that, wants to be a part of the American movie industry, and the ferocity that they had to sort of stand out.
That, of course, brings us to The Wolf of Wall Street. Such an amazing performance, and kind of a great combination of all the things you really excelled at over the years. You're playing a real person, sometimes an unreliable narrator, and just this larger-than-life character. But like you said, these things really happened. And like The Aviator, I understand this was something you really shepherded for years.
Yeah, this was another. There's been really 2 projects in my life that I've really pushed as hard as I can to make happen and get greenlit. And that one was The Aviator, and this was the other one. And it was a 7-year process. We originally found the book. We optioned the book, and I think Jordan himself kind of liked the idea of Marty and I doing the movie, so we got the rights to it. It was kind of a sought-after novel, and we had a screenplay pretty soon afterwards with Terry Winter that blew me away with these incredible speeches and this insane, debaucherous, hedonistic world that he created, and he captured all the best stuff from the book. And we were prepared to do it at one point and very early on, and I remember we got a certain budget that was really, really lowballed for the kind of, the epic nature of what this movie needed to be. It needed to be opulent, and it needed to be all about this guy's, wealth and decadence. And Marty kind of felt the budget wasn't right, but more so than that, he, as he said to me many times, look, I'm 7 years old, and at this point, I don't want to have resistance in making the movies that I want. And if I'm going to do a film and I'm going to put these people and this culture up on screen, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And so he kind of dropped out of doing it because he felt a certain resistance from the studio about the nature of how deplorable and disgusting these characters are at times up on screen. And it kind of fell through, at which point, the sort of industry pushes things along, and another director got attached and another director, but I could never say yes to it. And I don't know what it was, but I just said, there's nobody that's going to capture the essence of these people and give the actors enough time to play and, explore the darker nature and the comedic elements of these characters, except for Marty. He has to do this. So I waited and waited and waited and waited. And then sort of 7 years down the line, I found financing from people that are outside of the industry that said, not only do we want you to do this movie, but we want you to really go for it, go to the extremes, because that's the truth of this world. And I came back to Marty and said, we're not going to get this opportunity very often, almost never. I remember times where I could finance things like Blood Diamond or The Aviator. I don't think those can be financed right now. So
really?
I think it's really, it's up to people who I think who want to take some chances, who've run into some, luck with financing, that say, there's a marketplace for these other types of movies. Because I think about 6 or 7 years ago, studios just kind of said, look, this is our limit, this is our cap on this type of movie. It's got to have special effects. It's got to be, and it's got to be a part of, the bigger sort of broader scope. And they've stopped doing movies like that, really. It's almost been like this strange sort of unspoken thing.
Yeah.
There's like a memo to everyone in the industry. No more dramas above this level that don't have these checkpoints. You're screwed. So that's why we talk about this year, and a lot of the movies I feel like that are getting done, it's either the ultra low budget films, or it's people that are fans of film that say, we want to see these other types of movies out there, and some of them take bigger budgets, and we're going to take a chance on them, and thank God for them.
I love at the age of 70, Martin Scorsese can still do new things on film. Still surprise me. And I love that after 25 years of doing this, you can surprise me. I want to talk specifically about the Quaalude scene, which ranks amongst, it might be my favorite Scorsese segment ever. And just what you put yourself through. I understand you truly hurt yourself.
Yeah, I was in the neck brace for a little bit, but it was something like that.
No big deal.
Well,
Yeah.
it was 3 days of crawling around like that, but it was, I got over it.
And I understand you got some inspiration from that scene from a YouTube video.
Yeah. Well, I knew that, when I was talking with Marty about this movie, I said, look, it's got to feel to me how the segment in Goodfellas felt with Ray Liotta with the cocaine and the marijuana and the marinara sauce. Cocaine and marijuana goes together. Cocaine and marinara sauce with the helicopters. The whole movie should have that energy. So we knew that this Quaalude sequence, which was a combination of many scenes that we fused together to add more tension to, had to even up the ante of that. And so we kind of that was the beauty of having financiers and people that really encourage us. This was really our movie. It's many people say that, but you can't help but be influenced by other voices when you're making a movie. It gets into your subconscious. You can't help but thinking, second guessing your instincts when it comes to decisions that you make with characters, or how crude certain characters are, or what distance you go to, or all these things come into play if you hear those voices. But we didn't. It was just us as artists saying, this is the film we're going to make, and it's going to be crude, and it's going to be hedonistic, and it's going to be hardcore, but this is reflective of the culture around us and this world, and we're going to tell the truth about it. And so we really got to make a film like they used to make in the 70s. It's true. This was the director's vision. This is back to the era, before Heaven's Gate or whatever, when directors really had the power to do whatever they wanted on a large scale like this. So that I'm really, really proud of. I'm really proud because I don't see many, many, many films like this getting made nowadays. It's a big gamble. It was a big gamble, this movie.
But as an actor, when you're reading the script and it's like, Jordan has a lit candle in his ass, is there any part of you that is like, maybe, was there anything that you hesitated to do?
Of course there was a few moments like that. Of course there are a few moments. But we were encouraged from the onset, and this is what was so cool and fun about it, is that he immediately said to us, sort of anything goes. And every actor on set looked at this like we were in the Roman Empire, like it was a giant Hieronymus Bosch painting, like we were just hedonistic to the utter extreme. And we were it's so fun to play a character that has absolutely no moral compass. And your only question every day is, what is good for me? That's it, And it just, actors have said many times before, it's so fun to play bad, but it's been so, it's been so fun to play a character like this that just is a vacuum cleaner of consumption. He just never questions his impulses. And so all this sort of took a life on its own, and I think the whole movie really took on a life of its own as we were shooting, because we didn't know quite what we were going to do, and it just became this other thing.
Is it true that you didn't realize it was a comedy until you saw it?
No. I mean, no. I knew we did a lot of crazy shit in this movie, so that was funny. But I mean, we, as Marty said many times before, he wanted to be authentic with this world, and they happened to be doing incredibly despicable, crazy things, and this was their environment, so it was going to be funny. It was going to be funny, but we didn't say we're making a comedy. We didn't say we're going to push the comedic element of it. It was just kind of the wildness of Jordan's life and his book.
And this is a situation where you're playing a real life person, but you actually have the real Jordan Belfort to consult with.
Yeah.
How often did you go to him? Because I believe Martin didn't really want to meet him personally.
No, he didn't. He, as well as with Henry Hill and Goodfellas, he wanted to be able to keep a distance from the subject to make his own film and determine, what type of movie he wanted to make. For me, I'd never been able to actually play a character where I could call them on the phone. It was a revelation, kind of. We'd be in the office, and I'd call him on his cell, and I'd be like, okay, so what else was in this room? He's a chimpanzee and on roller skates. Okay, let's get a chimpanzee. But more than that, he took me through every scene and kind of gave me the beat by beat of his motivation, where his head was at. It was a whole different dynamic. It was a whole different dynamic to making a movie, and incredibly beneficial.
Are you the kind of actor who takes work home with you? Like, were you fun to be around while making this movie?
I don't know if I was fun. I was, it was such a constant adrenaline rush. Every day was just, we were all, kicking on, every possible cylinder, and it took so much energy out of me. But yeah, I mean, I think I took on a different attitude while making this movie. Joan and I both did, and we'd walk around and have to sort of look at each other and remind one another that we're still human beings and with thoughts and emotions and feelings but this was one of those rare opportunities where everything was so loose, and he allowed us to really experiment every single day, and so much of it was improvised and free form. It was a unique experience that way, because I think so many movies that I've done have been so specific to the plot and the structure of the story, but this was something that kind of grew and evolved as we were making the movie, and we were making decisions on the day, really pivotal ones.
I just don't know where you found the energy. I get exhausted just watching the movie.
I haven't worked since. So.
That was the last movie you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the last movie I did.
I do want to take some audience questions if we have time. Denny Dor Modi wants to know the single most important acting lesson you learned from working with Martin Scorsese.
I think that it really Look, I've done these films with him, and I've had an incredible opportunity to learn from, one of the greatest artists of our time. But to tell you the truth, I am so focused on what I'm doing every single day that it's so hard to pick up. People have asked me if I want to direct, but it's so hard to pick up on what he's doing in his process because I'm off in my own world, and then we connect together. But he said something to me in this last movie that was just, he hit it so on the head that everything sort of made sense for me. We were making a film about pretty deplorable characters, pretty unlikable people, with Wall Street in the title, wondering if audiences would at all connect with these characters or this world or go along the journey with them. And he said to me, look, Leo, I've done many films in my life, and I have to say, as long as you're honest and authentic about your portrayal of who these people are, no matter how despicable at times, no matter what part of the darker nature of humanity you're exploring, audiences will always connect with that and go along with that journey with you. And that's what I've found in my career. And I said, shit, that makes sense. I mean, here's a guy that came out of the gate with Mean Streets and did Taxi Driver, Last Temptation of Christ, and that was his motto. That's been his motto in filmmaking, and that's why his films last for such a long period of time. And everything kind of clicked for me with that one comment.
I do think we're out of time. I'm so sorry. I want to thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on a great 20 years.
Thank you.
More than 20 years. And especially this year. Thank you, guys. Sorry I went long.
No, it's all good. Thank you guys for staying.